So in this video, we are going to review some of the most common problems that students needed help with in Mod 2. Now, one formula that you are going to need to know is the conversion between Fahrenheit and Celsius. So make sure that you have accessed or maybe downloaded the conversion factor, the conversion sheet. That's going to be really important. You're going to use it again and again and again. You're going to need to memorize some of it, but I would definitely have that on hand. And you can see here, it says if you want to do Fahrenheit to Celsius, let's analyze that formula. You're going to take the Fahrenheit, you're going to minus off 32, you're going to get an answer, and then you're going to divide by 1.8, and that's going to be your Celsius. Okay, so that's how you would go from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Now the other way, that's this formula that you see right here. You're going to take the Celsius and you're going to multiply by 1.8. And then you add 32. So you see how it's in the opposite order that we just saw for the Fahrenheit to Celsius. So this is taking the Fahrenheit and making it Celsius. This is taking the Celsius and making it into Fahrenheit. Okay, so just so you know the difference. So I wanted to show you both directions. So if you see here, this is taking our Celsius and we want to turn it into Fahrenheit. Okay, so that would be the formula we see here. So let me highlight the one that we want so that we can focus on that one. So we want this one. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to take the Celsius of 32. We're going to multiply it by 1.8. I would suggest doing that. You're going to, use just a very basic scientific calculator. So 32 times 1.8 is 57.6. Get that value. And then because of order of operations, you're going to add 32. Okay. So if we add 32 on that, the answer would be 89.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So a Celsius of 32 degrees would equal an 89.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so that's how you would do that one. Now let's go ahead and do the second one I have here. It says to convert 84.5 degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius. And it says to round to one decimal place. Now, many of these will do that naturally, but if we get to one where we need to round, I will remind you how that rule works. Okay, so in this case, we are taking Fahrenheit to Celsius. We want this one. Okay, and so let's follow order of operations there. So you're going to take your Fahrenheit, 84.5. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off 32. See how it's in parentheses? I would just do that math. So 84.5 minus 32 is 52.5. Then on the outside of that parenthesis, there was a division by 1.8. Now divide by 1.8. Okay, so your calculator might read now at this point 52.5. You're going to divide by 1.8. And I'm going to show you what the calculator reads, and then I'm going to show you how you want to convert it. So it's 29.16666, and then eventually my calculator shows a 7. Okay. Now, see here, it says type only the number rounded to one decimal place. So our first decimal place here, remember, we look behind it. If it's 5 or more, we move that up. So since it's a 6 behind the 1, we're going to write it as 29.2. So what does that tell us? Well, that says that 84.5 degrees Fahrenheit is the same as 29.2 degrees Celsius. So that's a little conversion between Fahrenheit and Celsius and vice versa. Let's take a look at this. Now in this, on this slide, we are going to convert pounds, ounces to kilograms, and then kilograms to pounds. So there's some facts that we need to know about weight. So the first thing I would think about is that here we have a 6 pounds, 3 ounces. And what you need to think about is that there are, and I'm going to write this down for you, that 1 pound is 16 ounces. Okay, 1 pound is 16 ounces. That's a fact you're going to need to memorize. Make sure you know that. Okay, so what you can do is to convert ounces into pounds, you just divide by 16 because you need 16 of them to make a pound. You only got 3. So you really have 6 pounds plus 3/16 of a pound. So if you do 3 divided by 16 on the calculator, you get 1.875. And I'm not going to round to the hundredths yet. Okay, I'm going to be as exact as possible, and then I'm going to round my final answer to the hundredths. So be very careful of that. So 6 pounds, 3 ounces is really 6.1875 pounds. Okay, now that we have that all in pounds, the next fact that you need to know is that you can go a mixture of ways here, but let me kind of talk you through it. You know that 1 pound is 0.45 kilograms. You can also, if you use the fact that a kilogram is 2.2 pounds, it might not get you exactly what you want. So I would definitely use the conversion factors that are on your conversion factor sheet. So that's the next one you're going to have to memorize, that 1 pound isn't quite half of a kilogram, it's only 0.45 kilograms. So I'm going to show you how to solve this problem using a proportion. Let's write this fact here as a fraction. 1 pound is 0.45 kilograms. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to write the thing we know on the bottom because I put kilograms on the bottom. Okay, so whatever spot that goes on, I'm going to put kilograms here. So that's 35.3. And then I don't know the pounds. So since pounds are on top here, put that here. And you can put any sort of variable you want, X. You can put a P for pound, whatever you want to put. And proportions are really great to solve because all you have to do is you just have to cross multiply. And then I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do that, but let's cross multiply. 1 times 35.3 is 35.3. That's good. P times 0.5, just stick the 0.545, on the P. And then to get your answer, you need to divide off that 0.45. So divide that, and it shows me that I'm going to solve it by dividing 35.3 by 0.45. Now, kilograms are, each kilogram is about 2 pounds, a little over 2 pounds. So we should expect that our answer should be a little more than double of 35. So keep in mind that double of 35, just think of that, double of 35 is 70. I better get a number that is more than 70 or I set it up wrong. So that's a way to kind of check your work. Remember, you have people's lives in your hand. You want to be super careful. So if you always remember that your kilograms is a little more than, it should look like it's a little more than half of your pounds, and it is. Our pounds is 78.44444 is what it's reading. So I'll put a few ones out there. And that 4 just seems to be repeating itself. And then it says, type only the number and round to the nearest tenth. So our answer here is our 10th. The number after it is not bigger, 5 or bigger, so we're going to just leave it 78.4 pounds. So that is how we convert between pounds and kilograms. And I'm sorry, I wrote this as pounds and I didn't keep going. So I need to go back up to the first one there. So we've got the pounds for that. We are going to use this fact for both of these problems. You can see how I set it up here. Let's go and set this up for the first one here. Okay, so let me go back. Sorry about that. Okay, so I know that 1 pound is 0.45 kilograms. And so the 6.1875 is a pound, so it has to go on top. Is how many kilograms? And I'll put a K. Okay, let me zoom in there. Okay, so remember what we got to do. We got to cross multiply. Well, 1 times K is just K. And then we are going to do 6.1875 times 0.45. And we are going to round it to the nearest, this time, hundredth. Okay, so 6.1875 times 0.45. I'm going to show you what my calculator reads, and then we'll talk about the rounding. It says 2.784375. Okay, now we need to round this one to the nearest hundredth. The nearest hundredth, think a 0 has 2 places. The nearest hundredth is 2 places past the decimal point, if that helps you remember that. And so what do we got to do? Well, we got to look behind it. If the number behind it is 5 or more, we round up. If not, we just keep it. Well, we're just going to keep it. So our answer is 2.78 kilograms. Now remember how earlier I said to check your work? Your pounds should be a little more than double your kilograms. Well, that's a little under 3 kilograms, and it's a little more than 6 pounds. So it kind of makes sense that those go together. So there is a little bit about conversions from pounds to kilograms and vice versa. Let's talk about this conversion. 1,500 milliliters is how many quarts? So we need to know that relationship. Again, our conversion factors become very, very important. So you need to know how to go from milliliters to quarts. So if you look on your sheet of conversions, it doesn't quite say, but we're going to do a little fix of that. It says that 1 quart is approximately, they're almost a liter, but it's not quite. It's 0.95 liters. Now that's not milliliters, what we show there. We need a relationship between quarts and milliliters. Now there's a silly little saying, it's just kind of helpful. Kittens hide down under dad's car motor. It's a silly little way for you to convert. This is our units, so that would be our liters. This is our milliliters, okay? All you got to do is count how many jumps does it take me to get from my unit, liters, to my milliliters. Well, if you count the jumps, it's 1, 2, 3 jumps. And what direction was I going? I was going to the right, so I have to go 3 to the right. What does that mean? Well, in order to take my milliliter or my liters and write it as milliliters, I am going to take this decimal and go 3 to the right. And so that would be a 9.5, and I need an extra digit. And if I don't have it, just throw a 0. So that tells me that 0.95 liters is 950 milliliters. So now let's rewrite this fact with the two things we want, okay? So 1 quart, we just found out, is 950 milliliters. Not quite 1,000. It's close, but not quite, 950, okay. So 1,500 milliliters is how many quarts? And it says type only the number rounded to 1 decimal place. Okay, now before we use proportions, do it again. We're going to set up a proportion. Okay, so we're going to set up a proportion first on one side with a fact we know. 1 quart is 950 milliliters. So we have 1,500 milliliters. How many quarts is that? I'm going to put a big old Q for quarts. Okay. So how do we solve that? Well, we're going to use cross multiplication. 1 times 1,500 is 1,500. Q times 950 is 950Q. We have to divide by 950 in order to solve this. So Q is going to be 1,500 divided by 950. And I'm going to show you again what is my calculator displaying. My calculator's displaying 1,500 divided by 950 is 1.578947, and there's some others. Okay, see how it says 1 decimal place. So let me kind of highlight our 1 decimal place is there, but behind it is a number bigger than 5. So we're going to use 1.6 quarts. So that's our answer, 1.6. Okay, so you have to find that relationship between the two things you're trying to convert and then use a proportion. That's usually the best way to go to solve these problems. Let's look at just some of those rules of rounding one more time. So the first one here says round the above number to the nearest hundredth. 100 has 2 zeros, so go, because that TH tells me we're after the decimal place, we're going to go 2 places. So let me highlight that spot. The thing behind it is not 5 or more, so we're just going to leave it. It's going to be 198.49. Let's look at the second one here. Round the above number to the nearest whole number. The whole number is the first place to the left of your decimal place. Sometimes it's called the units or the ones. That would be the whole number. There is a 0 to the right of it, so it is going to stay 2,068. Let me make that look a little nicer for you there. And then our last one here, it says round the above number to the nearest 10. Now that doesn't have a TH on it, so we're talking about wholes, whole tens. A 10 has 1 0, so that means we need to skip a spot, and this is our 10 spot right there. Now behind the 10 spot, that 2 behind it to the right is a 5. If it's 5 or more, you got to round that up, and so it would be, our answer would be 30. So that's a little bit more about rounding. Important that you know how to round, and you round appropriately. Don't round until you have done the calculations correctly, and then you want to round, because again, it's very important that you're rounding correctly. Let's look at this one. A medication label states the patient dosage is D, some value of micrograms per day. The medication is stated in milligrams. How many milligrams should the patient receive? Round to the nearest mg. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm going to go back to my Kittens Hide Down Under Dad's Car Motor for a minute. I'm going to put, I always put a little star as placeholders, and then I'm going to put my micrograms. Okay, so you can do the same trick. Okay, it says how many milligrams should the patient receive per day if the medication is in milligrams, but we're giving them D micrograms. Okay, so if we know it's in micrograms and we want to go to milligrams, that's over here. Just count how many places you have to jump and what direction are you going. 1 to get to that star, 2 to get to that star. I have to jump 3 to the left. So what does that mean? Because D is a number, we don't know what it is. Well, if you take, let's just look at the number 12. And if we want to move 3 places to the left, see how it's getting smaller? It would become 0.12. See how it got smaller than the 12 that we started with. So we're really, if you go to the left, we're dividing by powers of 10. If you go to the right, we're multiplying by powers of 10. So technically, we know that 1 microgram is the same as 0.001 milligrams. So first find the conversion factor. And this little chart can help you. Every place you move, if you go to the left, it is you're dividing by powers of 100. If you go to the right, you're multiplying by powers of 100. So I know that 1 microgram is 0.001 milligrams. So if I have D micrograms, how many milligrams is that going to be? So it's kind of a strange concept, but let's take a look at what we have. If we cross multiply, 1 times x is x, D times 0.001, make that look like zeros there, or D times 0.001 is just 0.001 times D. So, and then it says round to the nearest milligrams. Okay. So right now we don't have anything but the formula. So this would be the formula if we know the drug is going to be given times D micrograms per day. If we multiply by 0.01, then we are going to change it to milligrams per day. So that is a formula that you could use. So if we are having to go to the left, you're dividing by 1,000, which is 1,000, and that's how you could calculate that. Now this one, same idea. I'm going to write the kitten side down under Dad's car motor again. I don't need the micrograms on the end for this one, so I don't have to put the star micrograms. But you can, you can always add that so then you remember it. But here we are going from R milliliters per minute, and we want to change that to liters per hour. Now, there's many ways to do these problems, okay? So, you might have been shown a different way. I'm just trying to show you a way that I think has worked for my students in the past, okay? Let's think about what we know, okay? We're going to come up with a formula. So if we want it in liters per hour, I'm just going to call that X, just so we have a little thing there, okay? Whatever we start with, okay, we need to convert milliliters into liters. So the first fact we need is that there are 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. Now, why do I know that? Well, milliliters is here, liters is here. If I want to take 1 liter and change it into milliliters, I'm going to jump 1, 2, 3 to the right. So that's one way to put that, okay? So right now, our R is in milliliters per minute, okay? So we have to change the milliliters into liters. Okay, so let me write right down here. Let me write milliliters per minute. And we're going to use conversion factors on this one since we have two conversions to make. I think that's probably the best fit. Okay, so you see how milliliters is up here. So I write this first. Okay, I write milliliters on the bottom, opposite location of where it started. And I'm going to put liters up here. Okay, and then I'm going to put the numbers in. So it's 1 here and 1,000 here. Okay, now I need to change minutes. So what's the second fact we need to know? Well, 1 hour is 60 minutes. Okay, so see how minutes are in the bottom here? Okay, so I'm going to put my little fraction bar. I'm going to put minutes up here. I'm going to put hours down there. So let me scooch in a little bit so you can really see that. And then I'm going to put the numbers in. Okay, 1 hour is 60 minutes. Now, to multiply fractions, we're going to multiply the tops. We're going to multiply the bottoms first. We're going to reduce. We're going to get some nice things happening. Okay, so did we get our units right? Well, the milliliters are gone. We're left with a liter. Perfect. That's exactly what we wanted to happen. The minutes are gone. We're left with hours. Look what we wanted. Liters on the top, hours on the bottom. Perfect. Okay. Now let's get things going here. On the top, all I see is, now we're talking the numbers, are 1 and 60. So 1 times 60, just do that, 60. And then that's liters. And on the bottom, only number I see is 1 and 1,000. 1 times 1,000 is 1,000. And remember, that's hours. Okay, so we've created a formula that we get to use every single time that we want to convert anything that was milliliters per minute to milliliters per hour. We multiply by 60 and then divide by 1,000. Now, there's some ways we can do that and make that a little nicer. So let's make those numbers a little smaller, okay? Anytime there's a number on the top of the fraction that ends in 0, and also on the bottom of a fraction that ends in 0, we can just divide by 10. So now that becomes R times 6 over 100 liters per hour. And then 6 and 100 are both divisible by 2. Why not make it down one more time? Let me move my kitten's head down under over here. Okay. And 6, if we divide by 2 is 3, and then 100 by 50. And so if you want to convert milliliters per hour into liters, or I'm sorry, milliliters per minute into liters per hour, all we have to do is take the original number and multiply by 3 and divide by 50. And then we got it. And then we round that to the nearest thousandth once we have done the calculation. So there is our answer for that one, a little formula that we could use to do that conversion. Let's do another one. So sometimes when a problem, when I read a problem like this and I go, you know, that's a little bit confusing. What I like to do is I like to put some kind of like placeholder numbers in, and then the numbers will help me a little bit. Let me show you what I mean. So let's say instead they said, we want to get the patient, and we want to give them 50 milligrams for every kilogram that they weigh. And let's say the patient weighs 30 kilograms. Okay. And then for if the patient weighed 1 kilogram, they would get 50 milligrams. If they weighed 2 kilograms, they would get 2 times 50 or 100 milligrams. If they weighed 30 kilograms, they would get 30 times 50 or 1,500 milligrams. So just by sometimes putting numbers in, what we're seeing is that whatever the weight is, all we have to do is multiply by this. Think about the fact that a milligram per kilogram times a kilogram. See how the kilograms kind of cancel and then we're left with milligrams? So the multiplication of the things is the key. So our formula, we'll call it X, is if we multiply the M times the K, we will get the milligrams of the drug that we would give. So it's just MK, or M times K is the way you would write it. And just sometimes putting some placeholder numbers in instead of these variables can be helpful to show you, well, what do you need to do in order to, kind of use some logic, and that might help you. Let's take a look at this one. It says the medication comes in 100 milliliter bags containing M milligrams of medication. So what we can say is that it is M milligrams. If I could write that right. If it's M milligrams per 100 milliliters. Okay. If a patient requires D milligrams, how many milliliters should be administered? And then round to the nearest tenth of a milliliter. Okay. So if we think about the fact, let's do a proportion. We have M milligrams. I'm going to write the milligrams real little. And over 100, I keep saying 1,000, I'm so sorry, 100 milliliters. So if the patient needs to get D milligrams, so put it on the same location, how many milliliters should that be? Okay, so look what we have to do. We have to multiply 100 times D, and then you always end up dividing by the number that will multiply by your variable. Let's watch. 100 times D and M times X. And then we just have to divide off that M. And so we get that it is 100 times D divided by M. And so that would be your formula that you would use to calculate this every time. Okay. Here are some common abbreviations for our weights and measurements. Please make sure that you have these memorized. It's important that you know the different abbreviations, because you're going to see abbreviations in the medical order, and if you don't know the abbreviations, how are you going to interpret it? So try to use the correct abbreviations as you go through the process. So make sure that you have these memorized. So that's a little bit about Mod 2. I hope that helps you. You have a wonderful day.